Well, I will assume that everyone is here that wants to be here, so get started. Last time I went overtime. I'll try not to do that for this session, but good luck.
I'm here.
Yeah, I recognize a few faces from earlier, although some of you moved seats, so it's confused me. But I guess we'll get through that too. But welcome. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for having me here. So I'm going to speak about training module related things. Just a few items that we've decided will help you down the road. They're as far as configuration items, I'm going to talk about very little of that. It's all things that, just helps save time, of course, and even better, save some effort on your part. There's a few things we'll talk about where you might have to put more effort into it as you're setting up your system, but in the long run, it will save you, so you won't have to put as much effort into it later. All right, so here's what we'll do: a little bit of overview of the system, and like I said, not a lot of configuration, but just a few things that we think will be useful to you. We'll talk about how you can automate your system, help you do some of the work for you. Okay, so what is MasterControl training? I think the big one that everybody really cares about is the bullet point that I put on the bottom, right? That it enables your company to fulfill regulatory requirements. Save time, things like that, those are all great, but this is the one that really matters, right? Regulatory compliance. Okay, in this slide, I stole it directly from the slides we use at our training center. You show up and we start talking about the training module. This is one of them. 7 steps to configure your training module. Set up job codes, build courses. If you're going to use trainers or exams or classes, link them all in. And it's just like this, right? Super simple. Well, no, we've got a full day and a half of those training classes to talk about these 7 steps. So I wish it were that simple. It's not quite. But what I want to talk to you about is, excuse me. So the training module, what you really have is you've got people on one side of my slide here, right? You've got content on the other, whether that's a document or exams, trainers, classes. Okay, here we go. Job aids, anything that they have to read. It really doesn't matter what the content is, videos, etc. How do we get those to our people? Well, the tools we use, of course, we want to link our materials to a course. What are they training on? This is really the heart of the training module, right? The course. And then is how we get that to people is primarily through a job code. You could link a trainee and a course directly. We say that is not a best practice for MasterControl. Can be done. It's actually really easy to do. I find that somewhat ironic that it's easier to link a course directly to a person, and then we say, oh, don't do it that way. But it's super easy to do. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk to you about is configuring for reporting. If we do a little bit of, try to have a little bit of foresight on what we want to get out of our training system, we can configure it more easily to do that. So first thing I would say is when you're setting up a user, make sure you've got good information going in. So the first one, if you're using enterprise business units, like if your company has more than one location, you're probably using enterprise business units. But some sort of designation so you know that, this person, so I took a screenshot of my user profile in MasterControl here. So it's got my supervisor, what department I'm in, and we put that designation on there, SLC. So we know I'm at the Salt Lake City location as opposed to the Zurich location, something like that. But some of these details will become very helpful later when you want to run reports. If you want to run a report on, show me the entire education department and how the training they've got done. If I haven't added these details, it's very hard to report on it. Another one that I think is important, of course, email address is important to have. You can't send notifications that training is due if their email address is not in there. But that doesn't change much, so once it's in there, you should be good. But what does change are things like, so this screenshot I've got right here, I covered it up, but there's a field right here that says job title. It's always helpful to keep that up to date. In the 2 years that I've been a MasterControl employee, my job title has changed 3 times. My department has changed twice now. So it doesn't take long for that information to get out of sync. What's in the system might be out of sync with reality. So those are good things that try to stay on top of, make your life easier later. You can run reports based on, okay, show me of everyone in the lab tech job title, then you can later run reports on it. Supervisor, definitely an important one to keep up to date so that your supervisors can see what's going on and just have it easily accessible. And of course, you always want to be consistent.
Randy, can I ask one
Yeah.
question? Sorry, I missed it there because it was did you say there that you shouldn't assign job codes? Or you should?
You should assign job codes.
But you said your job role changed a couple of times, so that's going to cause problems. So.
Well, so the job title on here does not necessarily link right to a job code.
Okay.
Right? So my job title right now is customer sales representative. Prior to that, it was instructor. So my job codes that I had, in fact, I would say every single one of them has changed since then. But just keeping that job title up to date, it just makes it easier as far as reporting is concerned. Let me show you a couple examples. I think that'll be helpful for you. Oh, before I move on, I just wanted to make one more comment about be consistent. When you went to documents training, they probably made a big deal about saying, try to name your documents in a similar fashion each time. Well, it's still true here. If on one department, I label it as, education dash SLC, and for another department, I label it SLC dash laboratory. It's hard to search for all the SLC related training items. So you always want to be consistent in that regard. One of the systems I inherited as a customer, I spent about a whole week doing nothing but updating the departments to make them all the same so I could report on it easily. Because it was all over the map as far as, some items they had abbreviated education, and in other places they had written out Salt Lake City completely, and it was just, there was no rhyme or reason to it.
Could you connect that field to the list?
Could you? Maybe. Is MasterControl set up to do it right now? It's not. That's the second time you've caught me on what would be a great enhancement request.
Sorry.
Maybe what I should do is at the end of my presentation show everybody, I hope you all know how to do enhancement requests. Does everybody know how to do that? If not, I should just show you because it's great. As a customer, I loved that when they got the new enhancement request system, because then I felt like they were actually hearing my feedback and somebody was doing something about it. Prior to that, it was call tech support, and maybe they submitted the enhancement request, maybe not. But sorry, I digress there. All right, some recommended reports. Pending training by supervisor. Well, that goes back to what we were just looking at. If the supervisor field on the user profile is not up to date, my report's going to be almost useless. Department, again, same thing. If it's not up to date, it won't be done, or it won't show accurate data. Here's another one, completed training by department. I know executives love to see reports like this, especially where there's a chart on the top, so they can just glance at it. They don't actually have to look at any of the data down below. They can just get a quick view of what's been done. Job code configuration here. I think of this one more as a sysadmin tool. Will help you to make sure as people move around within your organization, as they do, it will help you keep on top of making sure that they're in the right job codes and the right training is being assigned. And this report, the combined training report, this is relatively new to MasterControl. I don't remember in which version they first introduced this report. I want to say it was version 11. Don't quote me on that. But is what they, prior to this report, you would have to run the pending training report, export that to Excel, and then you'd run a completed training report and export that to Excel, and then you could combine the data that way. Well, MasterControl finally got this great idea. Hey, what if we build a report that did them both at the same time? And it's been a pretty big hit, so I guess they got that one right. But yeah, I think it was introduced in version 11. Now, there is one new item in there that is not technically a report. I like to think of it as a report because of the good data it gives you. And I don't know about you guys, but when I look at MasterControl's reports, let me go back to that previous slide. Right? I just get all this data. I've got line after line, row after row of data. When I can actually see it in a chart, that's when it means something to me. I'm very visual that way. So MasterControl fairly recently introduced this option here called job code status, and it's really just a graphical representation of what training has been done. I can go in and say, show me the EDM job code, and it lists down below every person that's in that job code, every course that is also linked to it, and then I've just got a quick, easy representation. I can see exactly what they've done, what's still pending. It even gives me a percentage of it at the end. Anytime, I wish all of MasterControl's reports were graphical like this one. I should have pulled that one up there earlier. But rights will also control what you can see on this report. So if you're a supervisor, of course you can see your direct reports on it. This screenshot I took as the training coordinator, so it shows me everyone. But I really like that job code status. I was happy when they incorporated that. Like I say, I wish all reports were like that one. Okay, reducing duplicate tasks. MasterControl's pretty good about not doing duplicates. It's not flawless though. So there are a few things you can do to help mitigate duplicates in that. And I'd say the first one is make sure your job codes are up to date. So what job codes, what their strength really is, as I mentioned before, you can build a course and you can just start plugging in users directly onto the course, right? I can say, okay, Randy needs this training and Katie does and John does, and they can start getting training. But the real strength comes when I build them into a job code, because then it prevents what I started calling snowflake training. So here's my snowflakes. Snowflake training, if you think about, or at least we're told, I don't know if this is really true, but every snowflake is supposed to be unique, right? No two snowflakes are the same. Well, I know your mother told you that you're special and unique, but in MasterControl training, that's not true. We don't want you to be special or unique. We want you to be part of a training group. And so your training is the same as everyone else who has the same job title as you. And this is what job codes do. It helps prevent snowflake training, where you have special one-off trainings that you're the only one that trains on this particular set of documents. Now we can say we've got a group, they all get the same training, I know everything is in it that needs to be, I don't have to worry about gaps showing up in my training. So I know what they need to do, when they need to do it, and instead of being reactive, really where you think about, what has been missed, can help you plan for the future. If we're going to bring on new documents, it's easier to assign it to a whole group than create a single course and then, start going through the room. Well, I need to assign it to this person and that person and the other. Now the good news is, if you're not already using job codes, you probably have some tools back at your company to help you set them up. So this is just an example of where you would start. I'm guessing everybody that's not already using the training module and job codes has a spreadsheet that looks something like this, where you've listed out what document needs to be trained on, maybe some groups of who did it. But you can leverage those existing tools to help you set up job codes. You just start saying, okay, I already know which group needs to train on SOP number 2. Apparently that's the entire company. SOP number 3, well, that's only related to these 2 groups right here. But now I've started eliminating snowflakes. No more special little snowflakes in my company. This is just another way to look at the same thing. Instead of being arranged in a spreadsheet, it's sort of a hierarchical look to it. Got all company at the top. Everyone needs to train on those few items, which is what, like maybe a couple of HR documents, safety manual, quality manual, something like that.
We even divided the whole company job code into the onboarding job code. So then we didn't get confusing with the dependencies.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Because they rely on which sequence you...
So when you talk about dependencies, are you thinking
Within
in terms of departments or individual positions?
Training items within the job code can be dependent also.
Yeah.
But that relies on the sequence that they complete their tasks.
Oh, so you're using prerequisites too?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
But
Nice.
it can be confusing, especially for new users. So now we
Yeah.
have an onboarding job code. That's a whole employee, and they have to do that 5 or 6 items first.
Mm-hmm.
If they completed all the items, then they're
Then they get
real
the
job code.
positional?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, that makes it a lot easier for new employees too, so that's great.
Because they will get overwhelmed with, oh, I finished one and I get 35 more.
Yeah, or the alternative to that is on day 1 they've got 200
Yeah,
SOP.
with a due date
Yeah.
within 1 week.
Right, 200 training requirements to do in 1 week.
Yeah.
Good luck remembering that. Okay, one more piece that I kind of wish everybody was already using this, but it seems like it's a little underutilized, and that is the ability to auto-create courses in MasterControl. If you think back to when you configured your documents, when you set up info card types, way down at the bottom, there was a single little checkbox that said auto-create course. And what it did was give you the ability to say, okay, whenever I create a document of this type, I'm going to make MasterControl automatically set up the course for it, so I don't have to go in and configure every little piece. I can set up a template of my course, and then it will automatically, pretty much based on that template, I can put in, okay, who's the course manager, some details that are the same on every single document of that type. Now I can make the system fill all that in for me, and really all I have to do is update the title. I'll have to update the job codes too, but now I'm only updating 2 steps instead of 20. So enable auto create course on the document info card type. You do need to create that template first, but once you've done that, like I say, this is one of those items where you do a little bit of configuration up front, and it saves you a lot of time later down the road. But yeah, on that info card type, when you first click auto create course, then it opens up all of this other information here where you say, well, okay, I want to make all of these new items based on this particular template and this numbering scheme. We're going to start with revision 0 or 1. I remember at my company there was a big meeting on whether we were going to start all our numbering at 0 or 1. You know, silly thing, but something we had to have a big meeting about. And since I was the system administrator and I wanted to start with 0, I won.
Version 0.
Yeah. That's the initial, right? Everything after that is a revision. That was my argument. But it's funny because MasterControl doesn't do it that way. We always want to start with revision 1.
Version
Like it's,
revision discussion, right?
oh yeah, that was another
It's
one.
version 1, revision 0.
Yeah, you've been through the same argument.
Yeah,
I know.
always.
I can tell. But with that auto create course option, now instead of having to, write each one of these every time, the description and the category, all of that can be automated for me.
Why should you leave the template in draft?
Well, because this is, you build a course, and it's just going to be your blueprint for all the other courses. You will never actually release it to do its own training with everyone. You just have the system go read it and make a copy of it, and that's the one you release. Okay. So really, it's just so you know that no one's getting trained on that template. It's just there for administrative purposes.
Does it hurt if you happen to commit by mistake?
Not at all.
Just don't assign it to any job role.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. When you do create a new, or when the system creates a new course based on that template, so it's going to copy it exactly, which means there's no people assigned to it probably. So, no, I don't think so.
Can I recall it, or how do I
Sure.
put it back in?
Yeah, you
That's
could
the
just
new
recall it
one.
if you wanted to, but.
I'm new.
And exams. So have any of you run into the situation where you have released a course and then you realize either your exam was not up to date or you forgot to link the exam to the course? If you run into that situation? I may or may not have done that more than once. But really what you need to think about whenever that happens is, so here's the scenario. I had a course, I quick approved it, and all the training went out, my whole company. It was a fairly large training, and then I realized, oh, I forgot to attach the exam to it. I forgot to associate the exam. So then I had to think about it for a minute. Well, what do I need to do? Is this exam so critical that I need to make sure all of my trainees take the exam? Or is it just a nice to have? Now, if it's a critical piece of that training, I could recall it and then resend the training. But that means those few that were very quick on their training, they probably signed off on their task before I realized anything was wrong. And if I recall it and then quick approve it, everybody just got another task for the exact same thing. This time with the exam attached. So you need to have that sort of internal discussion there. Is this exam so critical that I need to make all of my trainees take the exam? If it's not, then you can edit it This is, of course, assuming you have rights. But you could edit the info card without pulling it back to draft. It could stay in release, add the exam to it, and then save it. And then the next time anybody tries to do their training, they get the exam. Anyone who has signed off previous to that, of course, they won't see it. But they don't have to take it twice.
It's not that important, just don't put an exam into it.
Well, okay, that's the real answer.
Ah.
Or at least that's what I always said as the training coordinator. I'm like, well, if I don't need to recall it and make everybody do it again, do we really need the exam at all? Details.
Quite
Right.
annoying, that's what QA stands for.
Yeah, that's a good call. How am I doing on time? I don't want to keep you extra this time. There it goes. Okay, so the last little bits that I want to talk about, understanding some of the variables that drive the logic behind the training module. So this presentation, the first time I gave it in Salt Lake City, I actually I had 2 session times for it. So there was a part 1 and a part 2. And now I've condensed it all to be a single session. So this is actually the part 2 information here. So what drives the training module? Well, I'm sure you've heard of this. We have the training gates, right? Has everybody heard that term before? Really what it means is anything that will stop training from reaching a trainee. And it could be anything from the document hasn't been approved yet to the course has not been quick approved, person is not in the job code, or the trainee info card has not been approved. I mean, there's lots of ways to stop training. In fact, when I was in college, my summer job was working for a city water department. And in the city, you've got, so these are the streets, right? And here's a house. That's a house, okay? I know it's hard to tell, but that's a house. And buried inside the street, you've got all these water lines. And then from each main line, you've got a smaller one that comes up to the house. And then in your house, it branches off to the kitchen and the bathroom and a few other things, right? So you've got a line that comes up. And then finally a faucet, right there where the water drips out. Well, between this street and that faucet, there's about 7 different valves that all have to be turned on for training to get there. Up here at the faucet level, there's one right there. There's a valve to turn the hot or cold water on, right? So there's one. Down underneath that, there's usually a main shutoff. So there's 2. There's probably a main shutoff for the house itself. There's valve number 3. Then there's usually another one right about here. At least this is the way it is in the U.S. Probably the same here. And then the city or the municipality would have their own valve and usually a meter right there so they could keep track of how much water you were using. And then there was, of course, a valve here, and a valve here, and a valve here, and a valve here. So how many valves is that the water has to go through to get to that tap? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 to 8, right? So I think the training module in MasterControl is kind of the same in that. There seems to be a lot of different ways to stop training from reaching the trainee. So we have to be vigilant to make sure that all of our valves are open, all the gates are lined up so that our trainees, go on, jump to the next one. So these are the 7 training gates in MasterControl. Has the trainee info card been approved? How about the job code? Is the trainee in the job code? Has the job code been approved? Is the document still in process? Has it been approved? Of course, if I don't quick approve my course right here, well, That's the heart of training. No training goes out if I haven't got this approved. There's the various settings on the document itself where you can say, only release to new, or I forget the phrasing that I use, where it says new employees or those where are scheduled retraining. That's what it is, right? Thank you. And now the course has those same settings. So if you're using like the SCORM compliant files, if you're using any of those same settings now appear on the course. That's new as of 11.5, I think. Are there any curriculum or prerequisites on the job code? These are all the different ways that you can stop training. Now, because there's so many different ways, I decided it would be more fun to play a game. This is the new latest game show craze sweeping the land. Everybody wants to play this game. I know you're excited. You've seen it on TV. Name that gate. So excited. So, insert trainee here. All right, Randy has gone on indefinite medical leave. Which gate should I close, and how do I do it? This is your quiz for the day. Somebody has gone maternity leave, something like that. We don't want to have training going out to them while they're away, because then that just have overdue training. How do I shut it off?
You put back in.
Sorry, I heard two different things.
I was saying we plug in for free.
Yes.
Trainees.
Oh man, I should have brought prizes. I didn't. Recall the training info card to a draft status. Well, that's one of the easy ways. Did it not get in here?
Or get rid of all
Oh,
the
good,
job
there it
codes.
is. I'm sorry?
Remove all job codes.
That would work too. That seems like that'd be a little bit more work on your part to make it happen. But there's two ways to do it.
Sorry, when you're saying using recall, is that the on leave thing?
Yes.
Oh.
Yep, you got it. So that's what I was going to say. There's two ways to do it. You can either recall their trainee info card back to draft, because if it's in draft, that's MasterControl's signal of don't send this person any training. And recently, MasterControl added this. So right here, this is my list of all trainee info cards in the system, right? Got a bunch of names here. And now there's a button over here that you can click on. Once you click on that, it pops up a dialog saying, when will this person be returning to work? So you can just plug in the date, save it, and once you do that, is what happens in the background is MasterControl will recall their trainee info card. It just pulls it back to draft. Like so on this slide where I said recall to draft status, it's just like a one-click solution to do that exact same thing. Come over here, click on this icon, and then I don't have to remember to turn it back on later. MasterControl will automatically put this trainee back into release whenever the date is reached that I plugged in right there.
What about if you don't know what date they're back? Can you give it a definite one?
Yeah, you could. And then they just stay in draft. Well, hopefully not forever, but potentially forever.
You need to enter a reason.
It does ask for a reason. Do you have to put it in? No.
Is me doing this part of the audit trail?
Mhm.
Okay, because I don't think auditors like it when your colleagues are in draft status.
And there's no note as to
But
why.
we still have products on the shelves.
Auditors, they're so picky that way.
So when you do this, does the system remember that you finished that training before you left, and the retraining period is still fine, so they don't have to do the retraining as they come back, or will it forget and launch everything as they come back? Or?
Well, so Yes and
What
no.
happens?
So is what is going to happen when they come back, MasterControl is going to look to see, okay, which items are now due. Because if they went on leave for a whole year, well, everything's going to be due, right? They need to start over. So it's going to look at the date they come back, make a calculation, and determine which items to send out. So the answer to your question is, it depends how long they're gone.
Doesn't it also depend on what your policy is on when people are away for a certain length of time, how much retraining they need to do when they come back?
Well, that would make a lot of sense.
Maybe they don't want to come.
It discourages people from returning because they have so much training to
We
do.
have to look at it.
All right, I've only got a couple more slides, which is good since we're nearly done. Okay, continuing with the world's most fun game show, right? Name that gate. An auditor observation shows that people are unfamiliar with SOP number 007. You decide to require unscheduled retraining. How do you do this? You don't have a date set up, but everybody needs to retrain. What are your options?
Quick approve the course.
That's the easiest way. Every time you quick approve a course, and I do mean every time you quick approve a course, it sends out new training. What if the course is already in a release status and you quick approve it again?
Still launches.
Still launches. I learned that the hard way.
It's a new effective date, so.
Yeah. As you frequently do in the training module, you quick approve a lot of items. You quick approve job codes, you quick approve trainees. You quick approve courses too. So I was in this habit of every time I made a change on something, I would just quick approve it. Well, I did that on a course. So we'd send out a course. It was a company-wide training, of course. And I quick approved it, and everybody got all this new training. And so I start getting all these phone calls saying, hey, Randy, I just signed off on this training. Why do I have it again? Sorry. Yeah. So that's one way you can do it. Quick approve the course info card. There are some options now to help you sort of fine-tune that too. You could go into the training folder and go to the individual users and say, I need these 10 people to start to retrain on an item. So it doesn't have to be an all or nothing situation where you send it to every person, new training for every person. You can go in and pick these individuals need to retrain. Approving or reapproving a course. Okay, last one. Critical errors identified in document 007 again. Training has already gone out and you don't want anyone to use the wrong process. What do? Flip the switch? Which switch? Yep. Recall the document. Put that back into a draft status. This also works well for even non-critical errors. Like if you forgot to update the header, you can decide how to do that. It might be easier just to make a new revision, but you could pull your document back into draft.
Oh, and the previous revision will become effective then?
Not unless you tell it to.
Because that's archived already.
Right.
So
they
you're
have
without
no-
the valid.
So that's an excellent point.
Effective procedure.
So revision 1 just got pushed to archive because revision 2 was approved, right?
Yeah.
And now you recall revision 2. That doesn't mean revision 1 automatically comes back.
So you have no procedure.
You
at all.
have no procedure.
Right.
Ah!
For the 5 minutes it takes you to fix it. But
Could that be an enhancement that is the possibility?
I don't see why not. I don't know that anyone has asked for that particular enhancement. Maybe they have.
Probably because they were happy that the wrong document got back in drafts, but,
They were happy to not be doing training, so they didn't
Probably
complain.
ran on the same day, as you said, so.
well, we had it once during, the Dutch regulatory inspection. And of course, they wanted to see that particular document. And we had no procedure in place.
Because it was being worked on, right? Yeah.
But it was not with MasterControl, but with another system, so they all struggled with that.
Yeah. Because it's hard to decide, do we want to bring the old one back while we do it, or, you know, maybe it's,
Well, eventually they,
yeah. How long is the document going to be offline? If it's a quick fix, I
you
wouldn't
can
want
never
the old
tell,
one.
especially not in the life science industry, that's my, it can take probably 6 months or so. But then they got the previous revision back, and all pending training for that revision, they didn't come back, so it looked like it was fixed, but it wasn't really fixed, but the auditor was happy though.
Well, if the auditor's happy, is there a problem?
With your actual quality, maybe.
Okay, so as you're going through some of these processes, I don't know if you're aware of these. There are some sort of magic URLs you can plug into your system to make MasterControl do a few things. So I've listed them here, and you can do things like, you know, if you need to make MasterControl go through and check for any outstanding training tasks, there's a way you can make it do that quickly. So I've got them all here. Probably you were given a piece of paper when you attended training that had these exact same URLs on it, but just know that if the time comes and you know, maybe you made a quick revision on a course and you want to make sure that all the training tasks go out right now, you can, you know, run your gap check, force MasterControl to run the task instead of waiting 15 minutes or whatever it is. You can say, run it right now. I want the server to do all of that. You can even target it to individual users too. So whereas this one, let's see, which one is it? This one is check system-wide for any training gaps that may exist. Here I can tell it, okay, just check the R. Jensen account, see if there's any gaps for him. Usually that's handy, like when somebody comes back from when they've been on leave for a few months. Something
By
like
gap, you mean pending?
Yes.
Okay.
Pending, well, should be scheduled. Maybe that's a,
But not, you have a procedure and no one is trading it.
right.
Is that a gap too?
It would be a gap. I don't know if you can
But that's not
schedule
what-
against
that's
that
not
though.
what that functionality does.
Well, if you haven't got anybody scheduled to train on it, the system won't know, right? So.
Okay.
All right. Well, that's all the time I've got for you. Thank you for coming. I'm glad you came, and I hope this was useful to you. If you have any questions, or even any comments for that matter, you're welcome to come let me know. I know there's a survey they want you to fill out, but last time they told me just before this session started that the URL for it wasn't working. So they're supposed to have it fixed soon. But anyway, I appreciate you coming. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.